Good morning. This is Chattin with CHAP, and I'm your host, Ginger Wade. So this episode was pre-recorded simply because it's going to be a compilation of this new information I'm sharing with you right now, and one of our previous videos that we did about testing. So our topic is testing, and way back in episode 8, Dee and I talked about testing and share with you some hopefully really encouraging words and some calming information about the whole testing requirement in the law. So it was really solid. It's just that since then, there's some added information we'd like to share with you and some things that are new, especially with online proctoring. So I'm going to share some things with you here now, and then we're going to go back to the video and watch it, and then I'll come in at the end and share some other thoughts with you. But to get started with the law requirement of testing, I encourage you to go to homeschoolpennsylvania.org, look up the testing page, and read the section of the law. At the very top of the page, there's a link to the portion in the law that talks about testing. So it's always good for each of you to read the law for yourself, to understand what it says in the words straight from the horse's mouth, not from your buddy's mouth who might have a different interpretation of the law. So as you're reading the law, just think about what is it actually saying and what is it not saying. I think a lot of us make assumptions just because of our previous experience in the school system and how they handle ages and matching them with particular grades and this sort of thing. But read the law for what it actually says. Don't go in with any preconceived notions about what it's going to mean. Another thing to note about testing is you can take the test whenever you want during the school year prior to evaluation. So the year that your child does need to have testing done, just make sure the testing is done before you go to evaluations that year, because your evaluator, while they are not checking to see the level of work that your child is doing, they do have to check that you have complied with that portion of the law and that you actually had testing done. So if you go to evaluations and you don't have your testing done, then the evaluator cannot check that off for you on your compliancy with the law. The other thing with when tests should be taken, when you choose a particular test, and in the video, I'll read a whole list out of all the acceptable tests in the state of Pennsylvania. Those tests were all written to be given at a certain time of the year. Like, is it at the beginning of the third grade year, or in the middle, or at the end? Because obviously, the beginning of a year, your child is going to know less than they would have at the end of the school year. So if a test is written for the beginning of the school year, it's not going to include things that your children learned at the end. And if it's written at the end, but you're taking it at the beginning of the school year, then there's things that your children won't know. Most often, there's things that your children won't know on a test anyway, which you don't need to worry about that. But anyway, just take that into note when you are choosing a test. When was the test intended to be taken? So now we're going to segue into our old video. I'd like you to check it out and enjoy it, and I'll be back with you in a few minutes to talk about a few more things on the tail end of that.
Yeah. So tonight we are talking about sort of a dreaded word maybe, but we're talking about the dreaded testing. And you know what? Yes, by law, we have to test our children in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade, but it doesn't have to be stressful.
No, not at all.
I mean, I think the one thing we really just want our hearts to come across to you tonight is we want you to remember that you know your child better than the test. And no, it doesn't matter how they score on the test. No one can tell you that you can't homeschool.
Exactly.
And you know, your child's worth isn't found in a test result.
Exactly.
And how you're doing as a homeschool mom is not found in the test results. It's not, no. So, I mean, that's the big thing we want to stress before we get into the nitty-gritty details of it, is just to keep it in perspective. God has an amazing plan. An amazing plan for your children. He created them, He knows them, and He is not going to let you down or let them down. And no test is going to determine their worth, their value, or their future. So just remember that. I mean, we do have to do it, we have to comply, but remember, it's just a good way to see maybe some areas that are weak that you want to work on,
or confirm what you already know.
Maybe confirm what you already know, but it's nothing to be stressed about.
It really isn't, and there's very few people who really do super awesome well on a test, and it just is not a really good gauge of all the things that your child is good at. So please, deep breath. That's good. It's good. It's good. Okay, so a little bit more of the nitty gritty. There is a list of acceptable tests. So it is in our Keys to Homeschooling manual. It's also online, but I will read it to you here. California Achievement Test, the Comprehensive Testing Program, Iowa Test of Basic Skills, Measures of Academic Progress, the Metropolitan Achievement Test, Peabody Achievement Individual Test, the revised version, Stanford Achievement Test, the Terra Nova Test, Woodcock-Johnson Revised Test of Achievement 3, and Woodcock-Johnson 4, and the Weschler Individual Achievement Test 3. I was unfamiliar with that one. That's WECHSLER. So those 11 are acceptable tests in the state of Pennsylvania.
And there's lots of ways that you can go about doing these tests. You can do them online now. There's testing online. Yeah. A lot of times your evaluator will administer the test for you. I know that mine administers the tests. Yeah. Also, sometimes the co-ops will get a group together and bring someone in to do the testing. I'm trying to think of some other ways that we talked about. Oh, online, on our website. If you really are at a loss and you can't find anybody, you can go online to chaponline.com, and there is a section on there where you can put in a county, and it gives a list of testers. But the way that I did it is I swapped testing with a friend. We had a copy of the California Achievement Test, and so when it was my kids were in 3rd, 5th, or 8th grade, I sent them to her. When her kids were 3rd, 5th, 8th grade, she sent them to me, and we just swapped it that way, and it worked really well because my kids knew her, so that took some of the stress out of the test and not knowing where you were going or who you were going to be with, because you can actually do it at the school, but I think that's super stressful. That would be stressful. We didn't do that. I don't know. I don't know anybody that does that, but you can do that. You could send your kids to school for testing, but just swapping with a friend worked really well for us.
Yeah, and the cool thing is too, like you can even have a sibling doing it, an older sibling. It's just as long as it's not the parent. So it's really like if you have an older college-aged, older senior high student, they can do it too.
Test. Right.
Lots of options. Yeah. So it's really cool that way.
Yeah.
So. Let me see here. So evaluators are the only ones who are going to see those results. Back in the day, it used to go in the portfolio which went to the school, but no longer. It just goes to your evaluator, and really that another layer of stress taken away.
That's right.
It's very good. So if you are looking for accommodations, if you have a child with ADHD or is just struggling, you can ask for accommodations. And it's a good idea to contact the publisher of the test that you'd like to use and ask them, what are the accommodations that I could have and still keep the integrity of the test? So a lot of times parents will ask for an untimed version, or they'll ask to be able to read the test to their child. Or I knew one child who blew up the test so it was big, so there was more white space, so it looked like fewer words on the page. And this is all good and acceptable, but it's always good to check in with the publisher just to see what they're thinking. And I will post a web link to an article that a friend of mine who has a son with ADHD and any kids who have IEPs or ADHD issues, it has a list of accommodations that you can ask for. Really great information on how to handle testing situations and that sort of thing. So if that is a concern of yours, there are options. There is information out there. I will post a link to that one particular article. And again, you can defray the panic on all of that. It doesn't need to be stressful. You can, you know your child.
That's
your child, and you can set it up to work with their needs.
Well, and I think you said something really important. There's options. There's always options. And so we just need to seek those out and take the stress out of it. And we hope that our little time here tonight took some of that stress out of it for you.
Okay, so wasn't that great? That video, I just love interacting with Dee and the things that we were talking about back then. So I didn't have the heart to completely redo that video because it had so much good information in it. But there are a few more notes that I wanted to share with you on top of that information. And one was on acceptable tests. So we had some folks writing into us recently and asking about how to get access to the PSSA. And actually, the law does require that your school district can offer the PSSAs to your homeschool students. So and I've known people who have taken their children into the public school to take the PSSAs with the public school students. So that is an option, and they need to do it at no cost. So it's not going to cost you to go and to take the PSSA. So if you are strapped and don't want to purchase a test on your own at home, you can go and take the have your child take the PSSA at the school with the public school students. So I personally don't know that I would want to have my child take the PSSA, but if that is your desire, you certainly may go do that. Accommodations. In the video, I talked about asking for accommodations for your child with learning differences, ADHD or other things like that, where they need to have, like the standard form of the test is just a little too stressful for them. So I mentioned an article. Well, the link to that article is https://www.attitudemag, that's one word, attitudemag.com /IEP-test-taking-ADHD-accommodations-tips. So that's a lot. You might need to rewind in order to be able to write all that down, but it's a good article about what accommodations you can ask for your child who is struggling. So next thought is, where can I buy a test? There's a number of websites out there where you can buy tests. I do know that, like, I've gotten them from Academic Excellence before, academicexcellence.com, and sometimes they offer discounts at certain times of the year, so keep your eye out for that. Sometimes you get 25% off buying tests out there from them. There's shopchristianliberty.com /testing service. There's familylearning.org. There's setentesting.com, SETON, testing, one word, Seton testing. These are ways that you can purchase your tests online. Your child can take your test at home with the computer being the proctor, not another person. So that's super handy if you don't have someone to swap with, or your co-op doesn't do it, or your evaluator doesn't do it, or you don't have a friend who wants to swap the paper tests with you. It is online. So you do have that option. I've used that now twice. I actually really like that option. And you can do untimed options if you need to there in order to relieve the stressful time situation for your kids if they need that. So the next thing I want to cover for you real quick is, how can I be sure that my child will test well? Well, if you read the law like I asked you to in the beginning of the video and read it for what it says, not what you think it says, it says here, like we have on our Homeschool Pennsylvania page, you are the one who defines what child your grade is in. It's not by grade. So if you talk to a public school, private school, Sunday school person, they're going to say, oh, your child is this age. They should be in this grade. Because that is the standard, like, the bell curve. Most kids at this age can do this level of work. Therefore, you are in this particular grade. And that's just not the truth for everyone. Everyone learns at different rates, and grades. Watch my video on grades. We'll talk about that. So you can choose what level of test the child takes. Okay, so just because they're 8 does not mean they have to take the 3rd grade test. Okay, or 10, so 8, 10, and 13 are standard, but it's not like you have to do it at this time. So just keep that in mind. You can choose the level of test that your child takes. Practice tests, do I have to take a practice test? Is it really important to score well? That's really up to you. If you are partaking in a study like we just did with CHAP and NARI and BJU Press earlier last year, then you might want to take a practice test for your child to be prepared and to do their best in the test. If you're just doing it to fulfill the requirement for the law, then you might not want to put your child through a practice test. It is truly and totally up to you and what it is that your purposes are for the testing and what you would like to do with it. Most tests, really what they're going to do is just reveal to you the weak areas that you are already aware of because you work with your child every day. So I don't know that I would worry about practice tests, but again, it is totally up to you. But again, it is totally up to you what you do with practice tests. So the last thing I want to share with you with this testing requirement is that just make sure to be praising your child for work well done, and that they can work through the weak areas too. Like maybe the weak areas is what you focus on the next school year, or get tutoring for, or change curriculum for, or whatever. It's just supposed to help you as a diagnostic tool as a parent. So, but where they are doing well, give them praise. If they handled the situation of testing well, give them praise. If they kept on keeping on until it was done, even though they didn't particularly enjoy it, give them praise for that. It's important to encourage them in the work that they do. It keeps them upbeat. It keeps you upbeat. It's all good. So it's all good, which is what my shirt says, which I don't know that you guys can see, but it says it's all good. So there you go. That is my wrap up for testing. If you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to write into us, staff@chaponline.com. You can inbox us on Facebook, on Spotify. You can send messages on YouTube. You can send comments. We are here for you. We want to support you in any way that we can. So if you need any more information regarding testing, do that. Share homeschoolpennsylvania.org with other people who are looking for information on testing or other information on the law. And CHAP is here to support you as you train your children to follow Christ in all of life. And please, mom and dad, do not let the testing requirement cause you great concern. It's really just a diagnostic tool for you. Okay? All right. Have a great week, and we will be seeing you back soon. Take care. Bye.